Hi, everyone. How is everyone this evening? I am Carmen Pang, the co-founder and co-director of SWAG Singapore Wildcat Action Group. Welcome to the final day of Singapore Tiger Week 2021. What a week, huh? In the past few days, we've spent time with speakers from all major tiger range countries and learned not only the hard realities about the plight of the tiger, but also some hopeful stories that tell us all is not lost yet if we unite together. And by we, I mean the conservation community, government policymakers, law enforcement agencies, and of course, concerned citizens like you and me. And on this final day of Singapore Tiger Week 2021, that's exactly what we're doing. Our speakers tonight represent government and law enforcement agencies, crime monitoring organizations, as well as the NGOs community. And Dr. Vilma Di Rosario, my SWAG co-founder and co-director, will be introducing them to you in just a moment and telling you more about the program tonight. But before we get to that, I need to go through, as usual, the few housekeeping items with y'all. Number one, just like all previous days, this evening's session will be recorded, and the recording will be available on our YouTube channel later on. If you go to our website at swagcat.org, you'll find links to all our social media channels, including links to our YouTube channel. And to minimize distraction, please mute your microphones during the presentations and use the chat function to ask questions. We will try to get to as many as possible during the Q&A segment after the presentations. And lastly, for this final day, we would really like for all of you to join us in a Wi-Fi. So if you could please turn on your cameras briefly, and Daphne will once again help us take the screenshots. Daphne, please let us know when.
Yeah, sure. So just waiting for everyone to put on their cameras. Okay, as usual, I'll count to 3. So page 1, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, let me just check. Page 1 looking good. Okay, page 2, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, very good. One last page. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think now I'm going to turn it over to Vilma, please.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and welcome. Some of you, it's morning, like Jenny, it's early morning in Canada. And we have people joining in from other parts of the world as well. A warm welcome to all of you. Daphne, could we have that little map? Thank you. So we have a very exciting program for everyone today. We're going to start with a speaker from Malaysia, Dato Abdul Kadir. I'll introduce him in a while. We will have then Dr. Adrian Loo. I don't see him on the map. Where are you, Adrian? Is he up there somewhere? Yeah. Oh, maybe he's hidden somewhere. Okay, we have Dr. Adrian Loo from Singapore. We have Elizabeth John from Malaysia, Traffic, Southeast Asia. And we have Jenny Roberts, who's from WWF, Tigers Alive Initiative, and she's calling in from British Columbia, Canada. And towards the end of our session, we're going to have our youth volunteers present a summary statement of their takeaways from this conference, and they'll present it to Dr. Sivananthan Ilagu Pillai, who has kindly agreed to bring the summary to the Global Tiger Forum. So we have a very full evening of very exciting things. So, okay, without further ado, we'll have our first speaker. I think we can just move into the next slide, please. Thanks. I have the honor of introducing Dato Abdul Kadir Hashim. He's the Director General of the Department of Wildlife and National Parks, Perhilitan, Peninsula, Malaysia. He will talk on the urgent action to save the Malayan tiger from extinction. Dato Abdul Kadir started his career in conservation when he first joined Perhilitan in 1992. Throughout his 29 years in service, Dato Abdul Kadir gained extensive experience from carrying out wildlife surveys, patrols, and enforcement on the ground, often spending many months in a year in the jungles of Malaysia. In the year 2000, he graduated with a master's in Biodiversity and Conservation Science from the University of Leeds in the United Kingdom. In 2016, Dato Abdul Kadir was promoted to be the Director General of Perhilitan, and drawing on his past experiences, he embarked on efforts to build up the department's capacity to tackle poaching and illegal wildlife trade. Currently, the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources, or KETSA, through Perhilitan, plans to step up with extraordinary action to address the Malayan tiger crisis in Peninsular Malaysia. I have great pleasure to welcome Dato Abdul Kadir to give his presentation. Dato, please.
Thank you, Emma, for the lovely introduction. Assalamualaikum and good morning to everyone. Before I proceed, I would like to say my appreciation to the organizing committee for inviting me to give a talk in this year's Singapore Tiger Week. It is also unfortunate that we could not gather physically due to the pandemic, but I hope the conservation spirit is still alive in all of us. Gentlemen, ladies, to be given the task to talk about the urgent action to save the Malayan tiger from extinction is an honor and timely as well. I will be sharing on the actions and initiative that is currently being taken by the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources, KETSA, Malaysia, through the Department of Wildlife and National Parks, Perhilitan. So, before we proceed, I would like to share with you a video on our efforts in wildlife conservation. Thank you. slide. Next, second slide. Gentlemen, ladies, as you can see,
Dato, would you like us to show the slides?
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please. The second slide. Next. Okay. Gentlemen, ladies, as you can see through the video, Perhilitan faces various challenges in carrying out our duties to conserve wildlife and the protected areas. If before our challenges might be limited to only due to poaching, illegal trade or encroachment, now we are faced with new threats that require serious actions such as zoonotic diseases and wildlife kills. Even in my book, the Aspirasi dan Cabaran dalam Pengusahaan Depan Liar, Aspiration and Challenges in Wildlife Management, shares the overview and evaluation of wildlife conservation in Peninsular Malaysia from the British era until now. This book was published in 2020 and is currently in Bahasa Malaysia only. However, we are in the midst of translating for the wider audience out there. I have a few more books planned in these 5 years under the Fauna of Malaysia collection, and I would like to extend to those interested in publishing this book together with the department, as I foresee this collection will be a major reference to all for many years to come. Back to my presentation, ladies and gentlemen. For today, I will focus on the conservation of Malayan tiger specifically. The next slide. So this slide, next slide. The slide didn't move.
Can we have the next slide, please?
Yeah, next slide, please.
Yes.
Okay. So this slide is just to share with many of you that Malaysia comprises of different laws related to wildlife conservation. For Perhilitan, we cover the Peninsular Malaysia and Federal Territory of Labuan, that's in Sabah. This was mandated to us under the Wildlife Conservation Act 2010, Act 76. For Sabah and Sarawak, different law implies. So bear in mind that even though wildlife is under Perhilitan, their natural habitat is under the purview of the state. This is because under the federal constitution, wildlife is under the federal's responsibility. Meanwhile, land is a state matter. So the programs and initiatives carried out by Perhilitan is in line with the international agreement that Malaysia is a party of, which include the Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Fauna and Flora, CITES, and International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN. We also adhere to the Malaysia National Policy on Biodiversity 2016 to 2025. Next slide, please. And for the ideal conservationists, having Malaysian tigers in the wild is the ideal situation that we all prefer. However, as managers, we need to look in the whole sub-view in ensuring the survival of the species. Thus, our conservation methods not only includes in situ conservation, but also ex situ conservation. It is with this hope that we are able to ensure that our Malayan tigers survive for many years to come and for the future generation to learn and appreciate. Next slide. Sadly, we have lost 4 out of 6 tigers in these past few years due to rootkill zoonotic diseases and poaching. And I will elaborate further per individual cases in the next slide. Okay, next slide, please. So this is Yok Tapa. Yok Tapa was found on the 15th February 2016 in Perak. So it was caught in the snake, trapping its foreleg. As you can see, over time, the foreleg had healed, but it walks like a limp. I'm glad we came just in time to save him. This is evident that regardless of the changing times or the new era of technology, the snares indicated there is still a need for wildlife to be used in the illegal wildlife trade. Next slide, please. Now came the Awang Rasau. The name, Awang Rasau, is about poaching. Awang Rasau was a magnificent animal that had succumbed to human greed. At first, we found 5 bullets in him, as you can see in the picture. However, upon further inspection, we found additional bullets and total of 8 bullets in our rasau, which including a bullet, the number 2, at his spinal cord. So that bullet had caused him to be paralyzed. Gentlemen and ladies, eventually our rasau died to many severe injuries. Next slide. This is our Besul. This was a unique case that became viral overnight with some claims that the tiger present was tame. No. It can be seen near the human settlements and did not run away when there is human presence nearby. However, based on veterinary inspection, it was found that the tiger.
Dato Abdul Kadir, yeah, you were off. Okay, now it's okay, can hear.
Okay. Okay. However, based on veterinary inspection, it was found that this tiger Ombusul was diagnosed with canine distemper virus (CDV). It was said to the effects of the disease on Ombusul, such as the seizures that caused it to be out of control or semi-paralyzed for some time. So the next slide, please. The next is this one is missing. The video of missing surfaced on the 1st of March 2019, found wandering in an oil palm area in Mesin Johor. So the department Perhilitan had attempted to try to capture the animal. However, on the 5th of March 2019, it was found dead in the area, and it was found that Mesin also has a case of CDV. This is the second case we found, and we do not know what the current health status of our wild tigers out there. Are they also faced with similar zoonotic diseases? How healthy are they to be survived and to breed? We don't know. So the next slide, please. Now, the human-tiger conflict, which is situated in Kerteh, Terengganu. Gentlemen, ladies, in the past year and recently, the media had highlighted the appearance of the tigers in Kerteh area that had attacked villagers' livestock, likely livestock, not human. So it was found that the mother was just trying to survive and provide food for the cubs. Unfortunately, the media and political figures had sensationalized the presence of the tigers, indicating they are vicious, indicating they are dangerous. But on the other hand, it also provides the poachers with an easy harvest. So please, we seek the cooperation from all in order to save these magnificent beasts. Please inform us and assist us. Actually, there are 6 tigers around the area. So the next slide, please. Now we come to the human-tiger conflict in Guamusang, Kelantan, named Shamila Bihai. So this animal had attacked an orang asli, the native there, who sustained injuries at the head, eyes, and body on the 5th of July 2021. The 2-year-old female caught in Guamusang was also sustained injuries including serious injury at the face. She is a fighter and had been recovering well at our National Wildlife Rescue Center in Sungai Perak. So next slide, please. So next slide. So the urgent action. So I would like to talk here about National Tiger Conservation Action Plan, NTCAP. So the plan was adopted for implementation by the National Biodiversity and Biotechnology Council, chaired by the Deputy Prime Minister in November 2009. The NTCAP, previously led by the Ministry of NRE, now is known as Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources, KETSA, through Perhilitan in cooperation with NGOs, for instance, WWF, WCS, Traffic, MNS, MICAD. So reviewing the plan and is currently conducting Tiger Range States consultation and creating a National Tiger Conservation Task Force to monitor and implement on the ground for many years to come. But before this is possible, engagement with the states and the cooperation must be attained first before we can proceed. Some of you might wonder why we need to consult states. So under the Federal Constitution, anything relates to land is a state matter. Thus, it is best if we can get their agreement to cooperate together to achieve the main objective, serving Malayan tigers together. So, next slide, please. The next is reviewing the Act 716. So, the Wildlife Conservation Act 2010, Act 716, has been gazetted on 4th of November 2010 to replace the Wildlife Protection Act 1976, Act 72, and has come into force on 20 December 2010. So among the amendments in this act are the heavier penalties and punishment given to offences committed under this act, enhancing power to the relevant enforcement officers. With the act fully enforced, it will have better control on all wildlife species, wildlife derivative, hybrid species, and invasive alien species. This act also provides mandatory jail sentence for a term not exceeding 5 years, and a fine not less than 100,000 Malaysian ringgit and not more than 500,000 Malaysian ringgit. To date, any offences involving fully protected wildlife, the proposed amendment stipulates penalties up to 1 million Malaysian ringgit. It's about 250,000 US dollar. Okay, so next slide, please. So as for the interagency cooperation, I call it Biodiversity Patrolling and Protection Program, BP3. So this BP3 started in 2019 to coincide with the implementation of the Save Our Malayan Tiger campaign. Something must be done immediately. Thus, the government through Perhilitan had implemented this BP3 to combat wildlife crime, especially tiger poachers, and that is present in our forest. So under the wing of BP3, there are two specific initiatives were introduced, which is Biodiversity Integrated Operation or Operasi Bersepadu Hazanah, OBK, which was implemented since 2019, and VETWA program, that is veteran, army veteran and orang asli. Program enforced in the year 2020. Next slide, please. So, as interagency cooperation, this Operasi Bersepadu Hazanah (OBK) is an integrated operation involving the enforcement agencies of Royal Malaysian Police, Royal Malaysian Customs, Forestry Department of Peninsular Malaysia, Perak State Park Corporation, and Johor State Park Corporation. So NGO are also involved, such as the WWF Malaysia, the Wildlife Conservation Society, Pertubuhan Pelindung Alam Malaysia or Pelindung Rimba, and Traffic Southeast Asia. This operation is an integrated enforcement operation to protect our protected areas, the main habitats for our wildlife, and also to eradicate poachers. Next slide, please. And then the map on the left indicates that the area covered by the enforcement team on the ground. The red line shows the distance that they have walked on foot in the selected areas. Meanwhile, the map on the right shows the evidence of tiger marks or signs found. The red dots are the 44 tigers signs found in 2020, while the small triangular yellow shows that 10 tiger signs in 2021. It is still early to say, but the evidence on the ground is rather an indicator of the current status of tigers in the wild. So next slide. So in terms of current status of OBK, in 2019 to 2020, through 24 series of OBK operations that have been carried out, a total of 112 investigation papers have been opened involving 222 criminal offenders, while a total of 1,132 snares have been successfully destroyed, and the total value of the confiscation was about 4.5 million Malaysian ringgit. Meanwhile, for the year 2021, from January until middle of July 2021, a total of 7 series of operations were carried out, and a total of 47 investigation papers were opened, and various criminal offences involving 89 offenders, whereby 80 people are Malaysian citizens, 9 foreign nationals, and total value about 1.28 million Malaysian ringgit. So in the years of operation, OBK have managed to obtain seizures value amounting about 4.8 million Malaysian ringgit. Next slide, please. So we also proud to inform that our OBQ operation were acknowledged by the UN Environmental Programme and was one of the winners of the ASEAN Environmental Enforcement Awards for fighting transboundary environmental crime in 2020. Next slide, please. So Perhilitan under the Ministry, KESA, had implemented the Army, Veteran and Indigenous People, the ORASLI, VETWA. That was in June 2020. We appointed Army veterans, PD, police, the police retirees, and also the ORASLI under the contract for service basis. The expertise of Army and the indigenous people in this forest is expected to further enhance the border control of protected areas, the effectiveness of detection of cases in areas of encroachment hotspots, poaching, logging, including snake clearing operation. So meanwhile, for the police retirees, they assist in intelligence and information gathering in the field. So next slide, please. So the establishment of National Wildlife Rescue Center and the WRC in 2013, with its main roles, 3 R's. There is to rescue, rehabilitate, and release the wildlife, and the combination of committed rescue team, mobile operation theatre, and full equipped rescue center to deliver the professional services. So next slide. The next is about the roadkill hotspot. This is other mitigation methods. For the mitigation, not less than 130 areas are identified as hotspot for wildlife crossing, and a total of 236 signboards was deployed to alert the road user. So besides that, others tools such as transverse barbed wire and amber lights are also introduced to facilitate the mitigation. And I would like to take this opportunity to call upon the help from experts to create specific mobile apps for us to monitor or as a way for the public to report on roadkills. And although the loss of the animals is saddening, however, this data also provide us inputs on the distribution of the wildlife in an area. Next slide, please. So in terms of wildlife forensic, Perhilitan has harnessed advanced technologies, especially related to molecular biology, as an alternative to combat wildlife crimes and wildlife conservation and management. And Perhilitan developed its capacity in wildlife forensic since 2009 and established the National Wildlife Forensic Lab Complex in 2015, which is the first dedicated laboratory in Southeast Asia to conduct wildlife forensic DNA analysis for enforcement and prosecution cases. And the laboratory is currently certified under the ISO 17025 to ensure its quality and standard that meets the forensic requirements. And this lab has been actively participating and contributing in the development of wildlife forensic capacities through engagement in international communities such as the Society for Wildlife Forensic Science, the SWFS, and assisting other countries in the region where wildlife forensic capacity is lacking. So in the meantime, this team also conduct various research on wildlife, especially related to genetic and zoonotic disease studies. So next slide. This one I would like to talk on the Central Forest Fire. Gentlemen, ladies, in Peninsular Malaysia, Perhilitan is one of the agencies involved in the Central Forest Fire. Currently, there are 3 main viaduct, or they say is green bridge. It's purposely for the animals to walk underneath. That's in Perak, Terengganu, and Pahang, while an upcoming will be in Johor. And Perhilitan monitors the movement of wildlife at this viaduct, and at the same time provide enforcement on the ground when the presence of poachers are detected. Next slide. We also did this awareness program with sharing or publishing research, inventories, and data collection report, as well as collaboration with others on awareness, training, and data sharing are the core supporting events that strengthen and enhance the conservation effort for the wildlife and protected management. Next slide. Yes, this one is a catwalk. This is catwalk. Catwalk is an ultimate form of citizen action for tigers. Big thanks to the 2,100 cat walkers from 38 countries who walk Sungai Yu Ecological Corridor and disarm 250 snails since 2010. So thank you also for your contribution for the Save Our Malayan Tiger campaign. So the next slide. So way forward, next slide. This NTCC, the National Tiger Conservation Center, is a Malayan tiger conservation project that will implement the Malayan tiger breeding program, rewilding and release program. So the project is one of the government effort to increase and stabilize the endangered Malayan tiger population in Peninsular Malaysia. We have to take a proactive and aggressive long-term conservation approach to ensure that the population remains stable, ensuring the original gene pool is still intact. Next slide. So, for the Malayan tiger genotyping system, MyTags, so Perhilitan is also looking into the approach of using advanced DNA technologies to help us identify and create a specific ID for each tiger individual. We developed specific DNA markers to perform genotyping on our tiger in a program we call MyTags. And MyTags enable us to use DNA information to perform individual identification, parentage, and population genetic structure analysis on our precious tiger species. And MyTag database will be useful for future applications such as in enforcement, intelligence, conservation, management, and breeding programs. Next slide. So the ultimate goal for this program is to develop My Frozen Zoo, which is a future collection comprising of frozen sperm, ovum, embryo, and tissues culture harvested, especially before the individual species died. And Perhilitan is using the same effort also in assisting the tigers to breed using AI, artificial insemination. Besides that, we are also analyzing the hormone level in female tigers to see the possible chances of breeding Malayan tigers in captivity, and it is we hope this program can help assist our Malayan tigers in breeding using the biotech approach. Next slide. So personally, the Save Our Malayan Tiger campaign is an overall campaign which comprises of various main components such as enforcement, in situ and ex situ conservation, research, awareness, and CSR program with the stakeholders including the general public, various corporate companies, and conservation NGOs. And we need your help to make it a success. Please follow us closely at Perhilitan social media to keep on updates on the campaign. And your contribution and support will help save our tigers and create opportunities for further enhancement in conservation, especially in the artificial insemination field, research, breeding, and rewarding these beneficial animals. I think with this, I am a slide with a short video. Thank you.
Berhenti! Perhilitan! Kejar!
Thank you, Ilma. That's it. That's all.
Thank you very much.
And many apologies if I take some of that. Thank you.
You very good timing. Thank you very much, Dato Abdul Kadir, and thanks for sharing about all the hard work that Perhilitan has put in and continuing to do. We truly support the action that you are doing on the ground, and we will try our best to help because we love the Malayan tiger as well. So thank you very much for your presentation. And I'm sure there are questions later on. Thank you. Okay, next up, we will have our colleague from Singapore. He's Dr. Adrian Loo. And Adrian is from the National Parks Board. And he is the, let me get it right, Adrian. He is the, sorry, it's somewhere else. Anyway, I'm too nervous, Adrian, to.
Don't worry, you know me so well. Yeah.
Yeah. So Adrian is an advocate for biodiversity for over 25 years. And he currently leads teams on wildlife conservation, management, and wildlife trade regulations. His work has given him the opportunity to engage at the international, regional, and national levels across various stakeholders, from representing Singapore at international fora like the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora and Interpol Wildlife Crime Working Group, to co-chairing local groups like the Otter and the Longtail Macaque Working Groups in Singapore, which are community voluntary conservation groups that work on species recovery, habitat enhancement, and coexistence. Adrian will be speaking about the work of our Wildlife Forensics Center in Singapore and how Singapore is fighting wildlife crime. Adrian, please.
Thank you, Vilma. Thanks for the introduction. I can sense that you're very excited about this whole topic. And I thank Dato for the wonderful talk as well, very informative and amazing work that Malaysia is doing as well to conserve their wildlife. Let me just share my slides. So I want to thank the organizing committee for inviting me to speak in this very distinguished forum, and also to give me the chance to actually show what we do, highlight what we do.
Adrian, put it on, yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
I don't have very exciting videos, but I'll just run through this series of slides about how we are actually combating illegal wildlife trade in wildlife. Yeah. So Singapore is obviously in the tropics, and we are a very biodiverse country, even though we are small. We have already and critically endangered species still abound in Singapore. In terms of flora and fauna, on the left you see the hairless rambutan, which is still found in our peat swamp forest. A lot of people wonder, are there actually forests left in Singapore? I can show you there's a very nice central core of our forest in Singapore, our Central Catchment Nature Reserve, and a pristine primary rainforest in Bukit Timah Nature Reserve. We also do have our nature parks as well that buffers all these nature reserves. And here we see, the straw-headed boo-boo, which is also really quite commonly heard in Singapore, especially in the mornings and the evenings. You can walk around and you can hear them. They are quite shy, so you won't be able to see them. And as equally shy is the Raffles-banded langur, which has now, we count about maybe 50 to 60 of these. In the past, I think about 20 years ago, we were quite afraid that they were on the brink of extinction. So we are happy that, efforts in conserving our nature parks as well from development has provided, habitats for some of these species to thrive. And we continue to do so as well in Singapore. This might excite you, Vilma. This is a leopard cat. Yeah, so that's found in our Central Catchment Nature Reserve. They are rarely seen, but sometimes our camera traps actually catch them. And so we're very excited that we have a colleague, Marcus Chua from the National University, who knows this very well. So he's looking after them. We have the ganjil. We have the lesser mouse deer and the greater mouse deer. Interestingly, these are quite commonly seen these days. So if you walk quietly in some of our nature parks and nature trails along the nature reserves, you would have a chance to actually see this very shy creature. And to the northeast, we have this island called Pulau Ubin, and that's where you get the greater mouse deer. They feed on the fallen fruits like durians and all that. Yeah. Interestingly, you might think Singapore is small, but we do have the samba deer as well. Like as the picture, it was so nice to see the release of the samba deer by Perhilitan as well in those videos. This is actually a harem of samba deer in our forest. So we do use night vision goggles so that when we observe animals, we do not disturb them, so they can go about, and we have to be careful to stay downwind of them. This is a pangolin, the Sunda pangolin. We do see them in our forest as well. Unfortunately, sometimes we see them on our roads at road kills. So just like Malaysia is facing, also there are road kills, and we are working with NGOs, and the academics to see where these hotspots are as well. This is very helpful information because then fencing strategies or eco links can be built, or even when we maintain culverts under the roads, these animals actually use them. So we have our eco-link and our nature ways. Some of our roads are actually planted to look like forests. That's to actually encourage different species of birds to come. And we have an eco-link that actually joins up the Central Catchment Nature Reserves to our primary forest in Bukit Timah Nature Reserve. So in the past, there was this Bukit Timah Expressway that was built to actually help mitigate that fragmentation effect with this eco-link, and we'll be monitoring movements of animals through this eco-link as well. Some of the animals you see here, like the slow loris, he's walking along the eco-link, the railing of the eco-link. The slow loris is not very slow. If you see them at night, they actually walk quite fast. Of course, there are other things like your common palm civet, and then the pangolin that uses the eco-link as well, and other small mammals and birds. And so it's really nice to see the common palm civet use it, because they actually they ingest all the fruit, and then they will poop out all the seeds, and then they actually garden, disperse a lot of seeds for us and maintain gene flow in the forest. So this was a real just a snapshot of the kind of animals that you see in tropical Singapore. Because I do understand that some people, this is a very nice overseas forum, and some people wonder if there are forests in Singapore, what kind of animals there are. It's quite surprisingly biodiverse. And being in where we are, Singapore is a shipping hub as well, as with other countries in the region, and we have to play a key role in combating illegal wildlife trade, and this is in collaboration with all the countries that's around here as well. So National Parks Board is the CITES authority of Singapore, and we have strict laws and robust legislative framework. So penalties of illegal imports, exports can come up to $500,000 fine, with a maximum aggregate of 500,000 or 2 years jail. And of course, we review our legislation from time to time. Yeah, so that's very important. As things evolve, it's very important to then also amend some of these acts. So we also use other legislation like the corruption and the deterrence from trafficking, the drug trafficking, other serious crime, to investigate financial crime also, and confiscate benefits derived from the illegal wildlife trade. So this is very important as well, because money laundering is a concern, right? That's linked to illegal wildlife trade. So we do have a whole of government approach in tackling illegal wildlife, and we work very closely with our Singapore Customs and the ICA, Immigration and Checkpoint Authorities, and also our police to so that they can actually help us to look at financial crimes and investigate on even local wildlife crimes as well. So I don't know whether a lot of people know this, but in 2019 we had this we seized this shipment of pangolin scales with ivory, and that totaled about $66 million, and that was with the help of risk assessment and intelligence from China as well. It was quite hard work, and took us about a week to do this. And for that, we also got the Asian Environmental Enforcement Award. It's a really nice, vindication of the efforts that we put in. And it's nice to see that Perhilitan also got this award, because it really gives a lot of support and encouragement to the people on the ground as well doing this. So, and we are now also the board member in the Interpol Wildlife Working Group as well. So, domestic sale of tiger specimens is prohibited in Singapore, but we've had seizures before. There have been 8 detections of illegal trade and smuggling of tiger parts in Singapore. And of course, these are various parts of the tiger. You can see there, there's a tiger tooth and some claws as well. Then there's a leopard tooth as well. So we are strengthening our efforts through various means and for various illegal wildlife trade items as well. So there will be a domestic ivory ban. This will be effective very soon. It was announced 2 years ago, and this ban will include the prohibition of all elephant ivory, and public display for elephant ivory for purpose of sale is also prohibited. And this includes pre-convention ivory as well. So it's actually quite a strict ban, one of the strictest ban in the world. So how do we enhance our capabilities? We launched this Center for Wildlife Forensics in August 2020, and it was to strengthen NParks detection and diagnostic capabilities. Basically to identify where the specimens, what specimens are there. And we have a panel of advisors that international advisors that help us advise, and also they are also academics, and they advise us on the kind of technology that we need, as well as the techniques, as well as the kind of biochemical information that we need. So this has been quite important, because the seizures that we have, it was very important that because they contain a lot of information, because they are wildlife samples, like for example, the pangolin scales, as you can see above there, and the elephant tusks. These specimens are actually a source of information. So, and DNA technology can actually unravel some of the information that is hidden inside these specimens. So the Center for Wildlife Forensics, is basically focus on chemical analysis. We look at DNA. We also leverage on the expertise we have at the Singapore Botanic Gardens, which is with its long history on wood identification as well, because illegal timber also comes by, and we are forming a xylarium. Of course, there's the old and trusted zoological identification. Like for example, in ivories, you always see the Schreger lines. We have a team of zoologists also looking at some of this morphology to help us better identify species, even for sharks and rays and all that. We do collaborate with the University of Washington. You can see Sam Wazer. He's the one on this side here. And he's one of our expert panel for the Center for Wildlife Forensics. And this is him and us working on a seizure of ivory. And it was the work involves actually matching this ivory physically through their external characteristics. And not only that, there are actually very strict methods in where you extract the ivory from to get the best DNA. So it's nearer the root, or the so that's where you can actually get DNA. Then what this does is actually it helps us using DNA and using size and color of the ivory to match within a seizure, or we can also match ivory with other seizures in other countries, like let's say for example Hong Kong, or in Vietnam, or in Africa, and any country in Africa. So by matching this, right, different ivory seizures, and we have been able to do that, to match some of these ivory seizures to other ivory seizures, meaning that there might be a common syndicate that has been operating. And the DNA is so sensitive and gives enough information. It's down to population genetics. And this allows us to actually tell which part of Africa it comes from also, and which probably which syndicates is involved. So for Sennweiser, these are admissible information in the court of law. And he uses this, to hopefully he's hoping that this type of information will allow a syndicate to be, punished for a larger crime, basically. So there's a lot of information unraveling through this sort of work. Yeah. So we do collaborate with a lot of partners as well, in CITES, UNODC, Interpol, and WCO. And we at the local level, we work at international level. Also, we work with WWF. We have a cyber spotter program, and Acres and Traffic also give us a lot of information and tips off as well. We act on every intel that we get, sometimes at a very high cost to us as well, but we do that. We also collaborate with technology companies like Google and Microsoft on informatics, basically the morphometrics, the morphology of things like pterygoid scales of sharks, or even analytics of the internet, to address illegal wildlife trade online is very important, because a lot of that kind of trade obviously is shifting to the internet, right? Yeah. And also we do industry engagements with TCM shops, shipping and e-commerce platforms, so because they are the stakeholders and they might be the unwitting partners to illegal wildlife crime. So a lot of that awareness needs to be done with them as well. We do have a lot of publication and outreach, and as Dato mentioned, we can't meet people physically. Everything has to go online and in a digital platform like what we are seeing here right now. We did the public ivory crush event last year, and we had to televise that as well through a digital form, as a means of awareness and as a means of proof, that we have crushed the ivory. We do our webinars and roadshows. We have an annual festival of biodiversity, and to create the public awareness of the impacts of keeping illegal wildlife as pets. So, and it's a very common theme that reducing demand is probably the most important thing to stop this illegal wildlife trade. So over here you see us with Google and Serene from Traffic, and WWF, Michael from WWF, and we did a webinar on illegal wildlife trade as well. We do have our videos also on the ill effects of keeping illegal wildlife as pets. So in all our message, we tell people that they are actually part of that solution. We also work closely with NGOs. We also believe that working closely with NGOs is very important, because the syndicates are very resourceful and they are very highly organized. And so it's really great to see a forum like that, where you have a lot of NGOs, a lot of government agencies as well, and a lot of enforcement agencies coming together, and I congratulate Vilma K and team on this forum, because this is important. This is important to show our that we're standing shoulder to shoulder in this fight against illegal wildlife trade, and we need to be the ones educating this generation and the next generation as well. So thank you very much for this opportunity to share this. Thanks, Vilma. This is my last slide.
Thanks so much, Adrian. Thank you for sharing what Singapore is doing, because oftentimes we are told and we believe that, because Singapore is a transshipment port, that a lot of the illegal wildlife trade passes through us. And well, some trade definitely does, but now we know that NParks is really working hard to stem that illegal wildlife trade. So thank you very much for the work that you all do and for speaking. Thanks
You're most
again.
welcome, Vilma. Thanks.
So next up, we will have Elizabeth John from Traffic. So Elizabeth is the Senior Communications Officer from Traffic Southeast Asia. And she's going to be talking about tiger trafficking, investigation, and enforcement highlights. Elizabeth directs Traffic Southeast Asia's plans and programs to reach out to Southeast Asia's millions about wildlife trade and the crisis caused by poaching and trafficking. She shapes messaging on the organization's work, wildlife issues in the region, and efforts to change attitudes towards wildlife use. From designing outreach for schools and forest fringe communities to training journalists, she manages traffic's engagement with the public, corporations, and the local and international media. So please welcome Elizabeth, who will be talking about about tiger trafficking and what Traffic has been doing to investigate and enforce. Elizabeth, please.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Vilma. I hope you guys can hear me. I've got...
yes, we can hear well.
Okay, that's great. I've got two big challenges today. One is following up two heavyweights in, talking about wildlife trade and enforcement issues. And the other is to try not to depress you completely with news about trade. So I'm going to do my best. All right, so let me share my screen. I hope you guys are able to see that. Yeah. All right.
Yes, we can see.
Excellent.
Great.
So, all right. So, wildlife, I was initially asked to talk about wildlife trade in general, but, it's such a big issue. And since, it's Singapore Tiger Week, we at Traffic thought that, perhaps it might be better to just focus our attention on tigers. And I'm going to be focusing largely on what's happening in the Southeast Asian region. So what I'm going to be talking to you about today is largely taken out of one of our most important pieces of work at Traffic, which is looking at seizures of tigers and tiger parts and analyzing that to better understand the trade, how the traffickers work, where things are going and coming from, and how this is impacting tigers. So we have so far done 4 series of this analysis. And you can see all these pictures here of the reports. And all of them are free for you to download from the Traffic website. And what these reports have done is from the year 2000 until the year 2018, we have analyzed in batches tiger seizures or seizures of tiger parts. We began by just looking at tiger region countries. That means, countries that have naturally have tigers. But in the last of the series, the one we published in 2019, we looked a little bit wider, a little bit more globally. And that's what I'm going to be, the findings of what I'm going to be talking to you about today. Okay, now I'm going to be resting on this slide for quite some time, so please enjoy the lovely red dots that shows you where all the seizures have been made. And of course, the bigger and the more dense the dots, the greater the number of seizures and the tigers seized there. So what's happened overall? Let me just give you some overall figures first. So from 2000 to 2018, it's a span of 19 years. We've seen 2,359 tigers seized worldwide. Now this is just an estimate. All our seizure information is publicly available, open source information, with some information from governments and some information from other conservation NGOs that work on these issues. And the estimate is always a conservative one. So what we're giving you are the minimum numbers. This 2,000 plus tigers have been seized from 1,142 incidents. And this comes up to roughly about 120 tigers lost to illegal trade a year over the 19-year period. Right, so from our from these figures, what do we know? The majority of tiger seizures actually happened in tiger range countries, with India having the highest number of seizures, and there are some seizures outside tiger range countries, but the number is very, very small, 56. And you'd be interested to, perhaps you'd be interested to know that, those seizures, the highest number of seizures took place in Taiwan and Mexico. And we don't only look at the period of 2000 to 2018 as a whole, because, it's such a long period and so many things can change over the years. We also took the opportunity to look at a shorter time frame within that 19-year span. And when we looked at it, what we found, I mean by a shorter period, I mean 2015 to 2018. When we looked at it, we found some really interesting facts, like the yearly average seizures in Indonesia almost grew by fourfold compared to the prior period. And this ended up being double the amount of tigers that we seized in the much longer period before that. We also discovered that most of the tigers seized were wild tigers, and they were the seizures between 2016 and 2018 showed that there were 216 tigers were seized from the wild in 152 incidents. But really, the important thing about all these numbers is that the number of tigers seized in this short period of time accounted for 5% of the wild tiger population declared in 2016. So that's a sizable number of wild tigers to lose. This report has really far too many figures, and I won't go into too much detail, but there are very many interesting aspects of this enforcement that's been carried out all over the world for tigers. And I really urge you to go and take a closer look at the report. One of the other very interesting things that the figures from 2000 to 2018 show is the rising number of tigers that are being seized and coming from captive facilities. There's a lot about routes, there's a lot about hotspots, and I'll be bringing them up later in the talk. So a lot of people ask, tigers get seized in what form? So, I have put here this really very colorful graph. And I would say, don't worry too much about all the colors. What you really need to know from this graph is that the vast majority of the items seized are skins. And this has been a consistent trend from when we first started analyzing seizure figures. That hasn't changed, except if you look at the graph for 2016, you will find that a large number of live tigers were seized, and most of this can be accounted for by a single enormous seizure at Thailand's Tiger Temple in Kanchanaburi. I'm sure all of you have had seen that in the news. But year on year, what we find is that it's mostly skins followed by bones. On average, every year, the calculation at the moment says that 58 tigers are estimated to have been poached for their skins. Now, some of the important things that these studies look at and that we need to know to understand what's happening to tigers, how our enforcement is working, and that is the number of arrests in relation to seizures. I mean, it's not, we always tell governments that it's not enough to just seize. Somebody must be held accountable for the crime. And here you see the number of arrests for tiger-related crimes during the period. India is the top country for that. But overall, during this period, there were over 1,000 people arrested, and only 429 were prosecuted, and out of that, only 168 were given jail time. So we are arresting a lot of people, but carrying that through to courts, to getting them convicted, and actually to have them serve any jail time, it's a whole other story. When we look at the prosecution and conviction rates, you see quite a different picture. While India had the highest number of arrests, you see that it's China and Indonesia that have a higher rate of convictions. We do say a lot about China and tiger trade and wildlife trade in general, and I'm sure China has a long way to go to work towards improving its reputation in this area. But one thing China has been doing better than other countries is when it comes to prosecuting those caught for tiger-related crimes. In total, you can see the figures here. That's 549 years of jail issued over that period of time, with China, of course, being out the highest in jail terms. And here, imprisonment per person by country, China again the highest. Malaysia doesn't do too badly in these terms either. So these are figures from 2000 to 2018. We are still we are still counting what's happening now, and we should be publishing a similar report next year. But let me give you some quick updates, a sneak peek at what we have found in 2019 and 2020. So if you look at those figures very quickly, you can tell that the number of seizure incidents has dropped significantly in 2020. Of course, we haven't finished counting. We don't have all the information yet, but this is the situation at the moment. We're not certain whether this is because of the COVID situation and restriction of movement orders throughout the world. But the big thing is that there is a huge reduction in the number of seizure incidences. You can see there again a huge difference, 81 incidents in 2019 and 40 incidents in 2020. Highest globally, once again, India. ASEAN, Indonesia has recorded the highest number of incidents of seizures. And there are some countries where we just don't have any information. And among them are Myanmar and Cambodia. And I just want to say here that a lot of the analysis work that we do, a lot of the data collection and trying to understand this trade really depends on whether people share information with us, whether governments share information with us, whether media and countries report seizures, what they are able to tell us, and so a lot of it is dependent on that. What about the number of tigers seized? The earlier slide was talking about the number of seizures. This one is looking at the number of tigers seized. And again, you see a huge difference between 2019 and 2020. The most frequently seized commodities was once again skins, the biggest seizures of which occurred in India and Indonesia. And a lot of bones were seized in Indonesia. When you finally see the report next year when it comes out, you will see the huge difference between commodity types and the years in which they were seized. So who got arrested in relation to tiger range, in relation to tiger trade? In 2019, 265 people, 2020, 94 people, and the highest arrests were in India, China, and Indonesia, but in a slightly different arrangement in 2019 and 2020. So this is the trend that we're seeing. So, besides all these, different aspects that I've talked to you about, we also, when we look at all this and when we look at how enforcement in tiger trafficking works, we have to look a little bit beyond just tigers. What we're finding and what many other organizations are finding is that tiger trade is linked to the trade of so many other species. And just to show you an example, I want to show you a map next, which was actually produced by another organization, EIA. Traffic is not the only one that works on trade issues. And their map is very interesting because it shows you tiger trafficking hotspots and shows you the correlation between tiger and leopard poaching and trade hotspots. If you look at the map and the circles, it's pretty much the same. Maybe if we have someone from EIA in the audience here, I think Debbie might be around. I'm sure she can explain a little bit more about their work on this. But what I want to make a point of is that, tigers are often seized, or tiger parts are often seized along with many other animals. And it's different in different countries. Just to give you an example, if you're talking about bear parts and tiger parts in combination, you see that a lot in Vietnam. If you're talking about tiger and elephant parts in combination, you're talking about Thailand, Malaysia, and China. Whereas if you're talking about rhino horns seized together with tiger parts, you're talking about Vietnam. So it's really amazing what looking at the data can tell you about types of things being seized, where they're coming from, where they're going to, what the demand is, and whether syndicates are not just focusing on one item but many items. So now I'm going to take you very quickly through a couple of interesting cases, and there's so many interesting cases when you look at them individually, and they tell you a lot. And I'm hoping that by going through this, walking you through these cases, that you will see why we bother to look at seizures and why we what we can learn from these cases. So here you have a case in Indonesia in 2020. What's interesting about this case is that this is one of the recent cases where the Indonesian courts have started giving out close to maximum jail time. So the law in Indonesia allows for a maximum of 5 years jail. And you're now seeing many cases where they have been giving 4 years or 4 years, 6 months. in terms of jail time. But it wasn't always the case. If you look much further back, say for instance, to I think around 2009, there were quite a few cases where tiger traders caught with, say, 3 tigers or 3 tiger skins were given just a year of jail time. And you see how, when you look at these new cases, how things have changed. Now Indonesia is even thinking of going even further by introducing life imprisonment for poachers involved with the trade of protected species. So they're currently reviewing and rewriting their law, and they're thinking about that. This case was also interesting because 3 people were caught, and they were believed to be part of a ring. But despite having a variety of tiger parts with them, they were thought to be just starting in the business. They were using a different method than what was usually seen in the area. They were electrocuting the tigers. In this particular case, they had even removed the fetus from the female tiger in order to sell it separately. So that is something that we don't see very often. And cases like this point us in a direction of a possible new demand or a possible new item, part of the tiger that is unfortunately being marketed for sale. And then you have another case from Indonesia. This case clearly showed us that these 2 cases clearly showed us that, it's never just a bunch of guys, one network or one ring operating anywhere for a long period of time. You take out one, very often that space is filled up by another, and it just shows the need for continued vigilance. So in this case, you had, in January, you had some tiger traders caught, and they were targeting tigers in the Kerinci Sebelah National Park. And after they were caught, the park said that between January and the time that they were sent to jail, the number of cases in the area had dropped by 40%. But then in roughly the same area, actually in the same town or in the same district, in May of 2017, another ring was caught, also targeting tigers in Kerinci Sebelah. So, it just goes to show that, in a very, very short period of time, someone else filled that space. And, it also pointed to important things like, operations happening around where the tigers are. And it shows, especially in the second case in 2017, this ring had very, very wide links to the rest of Indonesia. They weren't just operating in one area. And with both these investigations, it took enforcement officers about 2 to 3 years of continuous investigation to catch these guys. So investigations and enforcement, not as easy as it seems, takes a long time, can be very complicated. Let's look at a case from Malaysia. So this case brought to light a very interesting phenomenon. Now, Malaysia has had a lot of non-Malaysian nationals come into the country to collect forest produce and to hunt opportunistically over the years. There was a wave of Cambodians at one time. Then there were a wave of Thai hunters and collectors, most of them looking for agar wood, but hunting opportunistically. And then suddenly we had this case where 2 Vietnamese nationals were caught, and they had a pile of wildlife with them, wild animal parts with them, including these tiger skins and leopard skin, and no agar wood at all. So it would seem on the surface of it that they had come in with a specific intention of hunting wildlife. It wasn't opportunistic anymore. This kind of started everyone looking at a whole influx of Vietnamese nationals coming into forests in Peninsular Malaysia to do hunting. So, looking at seizures can really open your eyes to new trends and new links and target species and who's doing the poaching. Another case in Malaysia in June of 2018, 5 people were nabbed with all kinds of wildlife in the state of Johor, which is very near Singapore. And what was discovered was they were getting their wildlife, they weren't hunting, they were getting their wildlife from Indonesia and then selling it on to China, or sending it on to, smuggling it on to China. And here's where looking at cases tells you what your sources are, where the transit countries are, where the consumers are. It shows you that wildlife trade is so transnational. There are multiple links with multiple countries. And it also shows you where the demand is. So now I'm going to move on to Vietnam, which is a very, very interesting country for tiger trade, tiger trafficking, and especially what's going on now. It shows you a lot of the points that I brought up earlier. And the story from 2020 that you're looking at, the mugshot of the 3 handsome Vietnamese men there with the frozen tigers below. So they were part of a major network that had been operating, bringing in tigers from Laos. Now this is the transnational part of things, and this is what makes the looking at the data very interesting. So they had been doing this for a long time, and finally in 2020, they were caught with 7 frozen tiger cubs in a car. And, just last month, another 7 tiger cubs, different group of people, were found in a car also. And they had also brought in the tiger cubs from Laos, or they had been paid by a Laotian to transport the tiger cubs. This link with Laos is becoming very, very important for all of us who are looking at, or has become very important for all of us who are looking at tiger trafficking. Also because when you look back at the previous study that I showed you earlier, from just 231 incidents, we found that almost 90% of Vietnam's reported tiger trafficking route implicated a supply from Laos. So it was happening then, it was happening over a long period of time, and it's still going on, right? And after this most recent seizure of the 7 tiger cubs, something even more interesting has happened in Vietnam. The authorities yesterday went out to a hotspot in Nghệ An province. Nghệ An province also happens to be where those 7 tiger cubs were seized. So they went to several residential areas in Nghệ An and ended up finding quite a number of illegal tiger farms. They raided 2 and they confiscated 17 adult tigers. This happened just yesterday morning. And today we are hearing that the owners who have been interviewed have admitted that the tigers were all brought in as cubs from Laos. And, you're suddenly finding, the authorities are suddenly, acting on it, and good on them for doing this. And, it looks like a prelude to something much bigger. Now I talked a little bit about how tigers are being seized, tiger parts are being seized together with other things. One of the big things that we are seeing coming into Southeast Asia is lion bone. Now, lion bone, unfortunately, is being targeted, we believe, as a replacement for tiger parts, largely for the making of tiger bone glue. And, the seizures that are coming into Cambodia and Vietnam include a large number of tiger bones. And this is why you cannot just look at tiger parts by itself. You really have to look at the bigger picture to really understand what's going on and what other species might become the next target as tiger numbers dwindle. Now, remember I mentioned the farms when we were talking about Vietnam and Laos. And this is the big problem that we are seeing in countries like Thailand with tiger trafficking. A lot of zoos are being found with unregistered tigers, tigers that are supposedly born within the zoos or facilities. But when DNA testing is done, it is proven that there is no link between between the tigers in the zoo, and they've all probably come from captive sources elsewhere. This happened with the Mukta Tiger Zoo recently, where a number of cubs that were reported as being born in the zoo, when they were DNA tested, they had no links to the older tigers in the zoo. This has happened in quite a number of, with quite a number of individual tigers at the Mukta Tiger Zoo, to the extent that the authorities have begun the process of closing down the zoo and have charged the owners under multiple charges. Also, while at the zoo, they have found tiger parts which really shouldn't be there. In fact, a registered tiger at the facility has died. They found things like severed tiger head, tiger skins that looked like they were about to be sold. And this is another big area of looking at trade in tigers, the trafficking of tigers that is becoming more and more important. And a lot of these captive tiger facility issues are linked to trade in the lower Mekong region. That is, again, countries like Laos and Vietnam.
Elizabeth, sorry, you will have like 2 minutes to round up.
Oh, no problem. This is pretty much the last thing. So,
okay. Thank you.
What I want to say is that, we've been talking about this for a long time, and it's time to take action. Here I've quoted Kanita Krishnasamy, our director, and you just have to imagine her saying this, in a very angry voice, because she was supposed to give this presentation, but I'm taking over from her, and this is really the work that she does, and she will tell you it's not about getting upset. It's about getting angry and doing something about it. So don't give up, don't be in despair. These are the things we always recommend that governments do. These are recommendations to governments. But for today, I want to probably focus a little bit more on what an average person, what members of SWAG, what members of the public at this talk can do, which is this: don't buy. It's the first and most important thing you can do. And unfortunately, I haven't had time in this presentation to talk about online trade, whereas Adrian mentioned, all the trade is moving there now, and you see this tiger pendant on the right being offered for sale online. You don't buy stuff like this. And if you see for sale, please report wildlife crime to your authorities. Or you can use an app which Traffic has created together with Taronga Zoo, which is available on Google Play and the App Store. And most importantly, make your voice heard. In many parts of the world, NGOs are not listened to anymore. We've been nagging governments for too long. So, they kind of switch off after a while. But, when it comes to a member of the public, it's very different. Governments, policymakers, a lot more sensitive to, well, not everywhere, but in many places, they are sensitive to what the people are saying and what the electorate wants. So please don't be afraid to make your voice heard. And that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. It's depressing, but definitely, we are with you and Traffic and Kanita. We thank you for all the work you've been doing. Several years. I've known you for a long time, since Chris Shepherd, was doing the work in Traffic. And sometimes when he came and gave a talk here, he'd be on the phone and he says, "Oh goodness, there's someone going into Belum right now," and yeah, it's like forever you don't have any time for yourself and you're always like fighting. So we are with you, and please let us know what SWAG can do. And yeah, you've given us some guidelines. I think lots of us would like to help whatever we can do. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have now our last speaker, Jenny, Miss Jenny Roberts. Jenny is dialing in from Canada. It's very early in the morning there. Jenny is from WWF Tigers Alive Initiative, and she has several years experience in environmental conservation across UN agencies, government bodies, local and international NGOs. Currently at WWF, she leads on program development for WWF's Global Tiger Program. She has helped develop WWF's conservation strategy for tiger recovery, led the monitoring and evaluation for the regional program, and also helped in WWF's fundraising potential for tiger conservation. So Jenny will speak about 2022 being the year of the tiger, but she will talk about a vision for tiger recovery beyond 2022 year of the tiger. And it's really appropriate that Jenny will close the whole series of talks, because she's going to talk about what we can do in the future to look forward to. Jenny, please.
Thanks, Vilma. Just gonna share my screen. Thanks. So yeah, as Vilma said, I really appreciate what Elizabeth just shared and all that incredible data and the ongoing threats. And I hope to change the tone a little bit and think a bit about a hopeful future, some of the challenges going forward, but also how we can look forward with hope and with ambition, and why next year and the 2022 year of the tiger is a moment to do that and to look to a new phase of tiger conservation. So honored to speak to you all today, and particularly after a week of incredible stories of success, of challenges, of urgency, and importantly, also some stories of hope as well. So I'm going to start with a very short video just to change that tone as well. So yes, next year is the year of the tiger, and it's coming and it's fast approaching. And to understand the significance of it, we have to glance back to the last year of the tiger, which was almost 12 years ago now, in 2010. And this was when a new phase of tiger conservation was initiated, when hope and ambition for the future of tigers was collectively discussed by the 13 tiger range countries that came together at a summit in St. Petersburg in Russia in November. And they saw that business as usual was not working. Tigers were on a continued decline since the beginning of the century, and they recognized that something had to be done and done differently. This trying to save the tiger and stopping extinction was no longer enough, and they wanted to come together as governments, also with the support of international NGOs and investment agencies, to think of a new future for tiger recovery. And that's when they committed to the goal to double wild tigers from around 3,200 was the estimate in 2010 to over 6,000 tigers by the next Chinese Year of the Tiger. And that goal has come on us quickly. It's next year, and that's going to be the culmination of this effort in some ways, but not the end. It's obviously the end of a phase, and then an opportunity to set a new ambitious or hopeful target, or build on some of the success that we've had already, and also address some of the ongoing challenges, as we've heard today from Dato and from Elizabeth as well. This was a very simple target that was created to double the number of tigers in the wild, obviously, but there was a framework and a program which went into much more detail called the Global Tiger Recovery Program, which had much, I won't go through the list here, but you can see different actions and priorities that governments recognized needed to be taken in order to recover tigers and to address the threats and allow them to bounce back. Tigers breed very well if we give them the space and the prey they need to recover. So beneath this global tiger recovery program, there was also national tiger action plans, as Dato explained earlier about Malaysia's national tiger action plan. So each country had a plan beneath this as well. And how well this has worked really depends on where you look and at what scale you look at. But it was seen in 2010 as the last best hope for the survival of tigers and for the conservation of the landscapes in which they live, which of course encompass so much importance beyond the single species, but towards entire ecosystem services that they provide to other biodiversity, to local people and people globally as well in terms of climate. So how well it's gone at a global scale, if we look. So as I mentioned, from the start of the last century, there had been a continued and dramatic decline in tiger numbers, with extinction after extinction at national and local levels, until 2010, which was hoping to be a turning point for tiger conservation with the summit held. It seems at a global level that this trend has happened, that hope has turned a corner in tiger conservation, that we've managed to stop the decline and in some places increase tiger numbers. So on global levels, it looks like the trend in tiger numbers is going up. It's obviously extremely difficult to count tigers, and so these are all based on estimates, but it's seen that the tiger numbers are going up. And so this is at a global level. So as I said, when we look at how we've done, it's important to look at different scales. When we look at a national level in India, for instance, where the vast majority of the world's tigers are, it's also one of hope and of incredible success, largely due to an focus and priority of the Indian government and a huge amount of investment as well by the Indian government into tiger conservation. And we've seen a more than doubling of India's tiger population since 2006. And importantly, this is a doubling of tiger numbers. So the increase is also linked to improved monitoring and coverage of monitoring. But what this means that today there are more tigers in India than we thought there were in 2006. And it's not just India. Smaller countries such as Nepal has also seen an incredible increase at a national level. And also, as you can see from these graphs on the top right, these are different national parks in Nepal. So at a site level as well, particularly Ambadia National Park has seen an incredible more than tripling of tigers in the last decade. As I mentioned, it's not a story of complete success. We've heard already some of the challenges today, and we know that this global trend going up hides some really important remaining and ongoing challenges and threats and continued decline of tigers regionally in Southeast Asia, across most Southeast Asian countries. In some cases dramatically, and in some cases with the potential of national extinction within the next 12 years before the next Year of the Tiger. And so action needs to be taken. This snaring crisis, which we feel is the largest factor in the recent loss of tigers from some of the Mekong countries, and also the continued decline in Malaysia, as Dato explained earlier today as well. A recent report that WWF did explains that this snaring crisis is not only affecting tigers, it affects over 700 mammal species across the region. And as we come to the culmination of the T2 goal, this is one of the biggest ongoing challenges that we haven't managed to address, and that needs to be a focus in our next phase of tiger recovery. Within those 700 species that this snaring crisis affects, it also importantly includes the species that tigers rely on for their food, the prey. And what this means is that, for instance, if we manage to improve protected area management in a space, such as is happening in Thailand quite effectively at the moment, we're still left with historic depletion of prey, so not being enough food for tigers to be able to bounce back and recover. And so then it creates a really long timeline for tigers to be able to come back without more active interventions and management, which is very expensive. As we think to the next phase of tiger conservation, we need to look at the rampant threats we have right now, such as snaring, but we also need to look at future trends and fast approaching challenges on the horizon. For instance, in the next 20 years, it's estimated that 50% of the global infrastructure spend will be in Asia. So this is going to impact the vast tracts of landscape, of which there are still quite few, but it will affect those remaining pockets potentially. And so we need to think about how we get in front of some of those challenges and predict them and be involved in some of the planning of that in some cases to ensure that we can keep these areas secure for tigers. Because although these places remain, they're quite few and far between. And as I said, is there enough prey there? Is there enough space for tigers to come back and for us to bring back the roar? So why now? Why is now an opportunity to act? As Elizabeth said, this has been such an ongoing challenge that's talking about tiger trade, but in general, tiger conservation. And so why is next year a particular peak for us to be able to seize? It's the year of the tiger. It's a once in 12-year opportunity to spotlight this incredible species. It's also going to be the year where the second Global Tiger Summit will be held, where governments, communities, conservation groups, and investors will be able to come together to discuss a new phase of tiger conservation. We don't want this to be the end of a goal, the T2. We want it to be the setting of a new goal, a checking in point, and a setting of new ambition. So as I mentioned, there'll be a Global Tiger Summit in 2022 held in September, hosted by the Russian government, as it was in 2010. This year, it'll be alongside the Eastern Economic Forum, which has been ongoing for a few years, I think since 2015, by the Russian government. And this potentially gives us improved quality of attendees, maybe more heads of state, and also investors, which could be part of the next journey of tiger conservation, as funding is obviously always a limiting factor to our work and a lot of our partners' work. We expect a new global tiger number will come out from that summit with new national figures. Will we reach T2 remains to be seen. But whether we do or we don't, I think you've heard over the past week and today as well about the ongoing challenges. So even if T2 was reached or was not, we know that there's much more that needs to be done. We know that achieving T2 doesn't mean that we've won if we've lost tigers in some spaces as well. So what could we achieve in the next 12 years? What could that phase look like? This is some of the thoughts that WWF has around what a new hopeful or ambitious target could look like. Ultimately, this will be set by the tiger range governments. These are just some of the thoughts we have as an organization about priorities that should be included or thought about for the next phase due to what's happened over the last decade and what we've noticed in trends. So the first is whether if we don't reach T2, it's of doubling the number of tigers in the wild, we feel that goal should not be forgotten. We still need to strive to reach that. It still should be an ambition that we hope to reach. If we do reach it, we should aim to continue the upward trend of tiger numbers in the wild, or at the very least stabilize. Of course, we don't want to make sure that this is just a blip in the tiger conservation and it continues to decline back towards extinction in some places. We also recognize the unique and very urgent decline, continued decline of tigers in Southeast Asia. And we feel the need for a focused regional and also national plans to be part of the next phase because of how urgent the situation is in many of these countries. Dato from Department of National Parks in Malaysia already explained some of the actions that their government are taking towards this next phase and to taking a new step towards that as well. And finally, what I want to touch on, ending with hope, is a thought we have on increasing a target to increase the range and occupancy, the places where tigers are found for the next phase of tiger conservation. And this is because although we've seen an increase in the number of tigers in the wild, what we've seen is a decline in range. So tiger numbers may be going up globally, but the places where they're found is decreasing over the last decade and seems to be on a continued downward trend. So what we'd end up with is pockets or landscapes in some places with good tiger numbers, but a loss of range and local extinctions globally. And this map shows that visually. If you look at the cream color, this is the thought historic range of tigers. If you look at the red, that shows where tigers have possibly and very recently gone extinct, probably since potentially since 2010, or could have been before that. And the yellow here shows that where tigers are still found. So as you can see, there's been a huge loss of range. It's even in our recent history. And this is a concerning trend for us, and one that we feel needs to be addressed and have attention paid to it. We see this as important not only for tiger recovery of having spaces, but also for connectivity and the long-term security of the species as we look to a future of changing Asia and a fast developing Asia. This would obviously go in close partnership with any indigenous peoples and local communities living in this area. What we're doing at the moment is more looking at a global level at what could be possible, what could we challenge ourselves to do as conservation NGOs and as a global community who care about the future of tigers. WWF is currently researching beyond this map some of the overlays with where are highly urbanized areas that relate to the historic range and where are places where tigers could come back. I think you've heard earlier in this week from my colleague in Kazakhstan leading the project there on bringing back tigers to Central Asia, which is an incredibly exciting project. And could there be other options like that where we can bring tigers back to their former range? And not only through reintroduction, but also through creating the corridors and the spaces for tigers to be able to expand their range and repopulate the areas themselves. So this tiger taken in 2010 by a camera trap in far eastern Nepal was a new eastern limit for Nepal's tiger and the highest altitude a tiger has ever been found at in Nepal, which is at over 3,000 meters. So it was thought that tigers only went about 250 kilometers west of this in terms of where they were found in Nepal. So this was a new range limit, a new finding, which was really exciting. So tigers are coming back and they're moving, and it's about us supporting and protecting them as they move beyond protected areas and into new spaces where they used to roam. This even more recent picture from Bhutan is from the southwestern province of Samti, which was the only province when the national survey happened in 2014 and 2015. They did a national survey and Samti was the only province where they didn't find any presence of tigers, so they were thought to not be there. But this recent photo from March 2021 shows us that tigers are there, whether we missed them before and they've come back or whether they're starting to move back into these spaces. It's very exciting and one that we need to support and ensure that we're ready to protect them in the spaces where they're moving to. And finally, a story, I'll start this short video in a second, but a story from India where WWF's been working towards a tiger translocation over the last decade, supporting the state forest department and the National Tiger Conservation Authority in Rajaji Tiger Reserve. This is a tiger reserve which has a west and an east side split down the middle by a highly developing city, a railway line, a highway, which has split the tiger population of the reserve in two. And in the west, there were only 2 females left, and it had been that way since 2006, with no evidence of breeding, and the hope and survival for the future of tigers in that area was at risk. And so WF was supporting the government in translocating tigers from Corbett Tiger Reserve into Rajaji to repopulate the area and create some potential for breeding. So in December 2025, in December 25 last year, a male tiger was released, and then in January this year, a female tigress was released. So I'm just going to play this short video from there. So that's my ending of hope and of an ambition which we could set ourselves towards not only trying to increase tiger numbers, making sure that they can reclaim some of the home they've recently lost, or even more historically lost if we look towards the project that's ongoing in Kazakhstan. So thank you all for your time. And yeah, I look forward to hearing the closing summary by the youth. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jenny, for sharing the hope and the ideas. We are with you with that, and you can count on SWAG for support. Yeah, thank you very much. We've come to the question and answer session now, and we see quite a lot of questions in the chat. Carmen, would you like to ask the first question? So what we'll do is Carmen and I will ask the questions in turn. To the panelists, and there could be some questions that some of our speakers from other days who might be here might want to also add on.
Yes, thank you, Vilma. But could I ask Dato to turn on your camera so we can put a spotlight on you to join the panel? Thank you. Okay. Yes, and I do apologize if you hear a dog barking. That's my dog in the background. Sorry about that. But we do have a lot of questions that came in, and I'll start from the very beginning. And there's one for Dato. I'll start with a relatively easy one. So, hi, Dato Kadir. Will the recent tiger involved in attacking the orang asli and now recovering, will it be released back into the wild? And if yes, in which state? And can it be radio collared?
Okay, thank you, Vilma. First of all, the tiger is okay. It's now in Sungai National Wildlife Center. The victim is okay, covering. To release back the tiger to the wild, we still not thinking about it. Now, what we want to do is we want to save the animal first, and then after that we have a program from Sungai. We will transfer to National Tiger Conservation Center, and then we decide whether this tiger will be released back into the wild or not. That is for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Vilma, over to you for the next question.
Thanks, Carmen. So this question is also for Dato Abdul Kadir. Okay, let me ask the question. Okay, last month it was reported that Pahang's royal family is requesting permission to open a huge iron ore mine in the Som Forest Reserve, which is home to many threatened species, including, I lost it. I'm coming back to it. Which is home to threatened species. And I think the person is asking, sorry, maybe I'm too nervous, but the thing is jumping around. So the person is asking, yeah, I can see it now, which is home to many threatened species, including tigers, elephants, sun bears, and leopards. And this person wants to know how is Perhilitan going to handle this?
Again, the question is about mining. Is it?
Yeah, there is a mine. There's going to be, so the royal family is asking for permission,
Oh.
yeah, to do mining. Yeah.
Um. Uh. Well, is good. Good question. Good question. Actually, I should thank for the question, but however, I'm sorry that I don't have the information about this, and I strongly believe this is under the purview of different agency. That's I can say at present. Thank you.
We understand. Thank you. Carmen?
Yes, thank you. I think I'm going to move on to a question for Adrian.
Oh.
And yeah, it's well, we'll circle back to you, Dato. But Adrian, we this is actually a question that I have. So, do you have any information? Because I understand that the actual trade of illegal wildlife trade of tiger coming through Singapore is not, mostly we catch elephant tusks and pangolin, for example, pangolin scales, etc., but not in so much as in tiger parts. But do you have any information if Singapore is used by criminal syndicates to move money? I mean, as the saying, follow the money. And Singapore is a big financial hub. Do you know if we're being used as sort of like a money, the banking, the bank for criminals, and if they're secretly moving money through Singapore?
Thanks for that question. I guess, this is the important question of the day, right? For illegal wildlife trade now. In the past globally, there wasn't much, the penalty for that didn't really commensurate with, things like drug trafficking and all that. So there's a lot of attention, and we know that there's a lot of attention on this right now. And then even if our agencies also, we are also quite aware that, these sort of things are emerging. With regards to the illegal wildlife trade that we seize, if it's transshipment, then we don't have any jurisdiction over that. But when it comes in and there's an importer, then we will actually pass this information to the police, the authorities, and they will try to trace. They will trace for any any indication of laundering. But so far, we haven't seen that kind of things yet. I always say that we need to be really on our toes, whether we catch anyone or not, right? Whether there are trends or not, right? Sometimes is it a matter of us not catching it, or if we see anything more, is it a matter of any rising trends, or are we getting more effective? So it's very hard to put a finger on that, but that's what we do. So any kind of imports that come in, I mean, if there's a receiver, in Singapore, or it's trade, there's illegal wildlife trade in Singapore, we put them through that kind of checks. Yeah.
Thank you, Adrian. Vilma, back to you.
Yes, this is for Dato again. This is about Samba. So I heard that the Malaysian government is going to develop a new tiger sanctuary. Good effort. By the way, how about Malaysian sun bear? And sorry, I thought it was Samba. Does the government plan to develop a conservation center for Malayan sun bear? Sorry, I thought I saw Samba, but sun bear. Yeah, so is there going to be a center for sun bear? And can you maybe, whilst you're answering that, I'm interested in Samba. Is there, any effort to raise the population of Samba? Because
Samba deer.
Samba deer.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we have that in our plan for this tiger conservation. We have to fit in prey for tiger. So we now are developing. We now increasing our breeding for Samba deer. Okay. So now we are doing that in Sungai. Sungai is we have our Ex-situ Conservation Center there. So back to your question, any plan for Malayan Sambar Conservation Center in Peninsular Malaysia? Well, I can say, yeah, maybe in this near future. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Carmen.
Okay, I am going to move on to a question for Elizabeth. Elizabeth, may I ask what accounts for the low percentage of tiger arrests, and how does traffic propose it to be combated? I guess the person is talking about with the seizures, but you know, the low numbers of arrests. And actually, I like to tag on a question to that. Why, in your opinion, why are the highest seizure numbers coming from Taiwan and Mexico? Is it because they just do the investigation and law enforcement very well, or is it, or that they're just the highest in terms of smuggling?
Okay, so for the first question about why the number of arrests are low, it's simply by the nature of the way seizures take place in many parts of the world, where you know, items may be found in a house or in a warehouse, or dumped somewhere, or hidden in some place where you just don't have you know, a physical body or a person there to arrest. And often, as you know, Dato Kadir or Adrian will tell you, you know, you can try and investigate. Sometimes you just don't find the person. That could be one reason. And I'm sure they will be able to, you know, tell you what are the other circumstances under which, you know, you might make a seizure but not be able to arrest a person. Your question was about, could you repeat?
Taiwan and Mexico.
Oh, the Taiwan and Mexico cases were, you know, just the two I mentioned of the non-tiger range states. There were quite a few others that made seizures. So Mexico and Taiwan weren't the only ones. They just had the most incidences or the most number of tigers seized. Yeah, but I would say that the Taiwan particularly has had a very good record for seizures of illegal wildlife coming into the country. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Over to you again, Vilma.
This is also for Elizabeth. Elizabeth, there have been incidences where online wildlife sales vendors have been detected by the public and reported. When no action appears to have been taken against the vendor, the public, wait.
The public takes matters into their own hands.
Yeah. Could you read it? Because somehow or rather my thing is just jumping. Yeah, thank you. That's the question. Yeah.
Okay, so the answer to that is yes and no. In some countries, we see that the public don't even bother to make a report. They just run with the case and go online. You know, they take a screenshot of somebody who's trading online, but they're trading online, and then they rustle up a whole gang of their online community to attack this person, to tell people, find out who it is and stuff like that. And, you know, a little bit of a vigilante justice. But what happens in some of these cases is that authorities then react to what's going on because it's become viral. In some cases, they have been able to go out and find the person behind it. And in other cases, they haven't. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And very often, in some countries, it will disrupt ongoing investigations, because, you know, the other point that I made earlier is that, you know, investigations are a lot more difficult than they would seem on the surface of things, especially when it comes to online trade. And many enforcement agencies are stuck in a position because of the law. They have to catch the seller with the item, to catch them red-handed. Otherwise, you know, the case doesn't work when it comes to court. So under these cases, circumstances, if you kind of scare the guy, scare the trader away by making the whole thing very public, you could unknowingly scuttle an investigation that has been going on for some time. So yeah, the answer is yes and no. Sometimes it works, and sometimes you actually make a bigger mess of things by doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Carmen?
Elizabeth. Yeah, okay. There are many, many questions, but I'm gonna now ask one that was directed at Jennifer. So Jennifer, how do you communicate effectively to make the species extinction relevant to people's lives when COVID is still taking a firm grip over people's daily survival, when the existential crisis is hitting humans? So yeah, how can you make people care about tiger when they're losing jobs and starving and going through a pandemic?
Thanks, Carmen. Yeah, no, a great question and a continual challenge. I think in some ways it's linked to how we communicate on climate change as well. It's about a situation that's a slow burn that has huge implications for us as people locally and also globally. So it's about trying to create that urgency and something that's a slow downward trend. So we take a lot of the parallels from that. We also do a lot to try to communicate around how by saving tigers, we've saved so much more. So we put out a report in 2016 around that concept called Beyond the Stripes. And it talks about, for instance, how tiger landscapes overlap with 9 globally important watersheds that provide for 830 million people. So by protecting those landscapes, we're protecting people's freshwater sources and things like that. I think the other thing which we try to focus on is that when we talk about our tiger work, people don't often understand what that looks like on the ground. And a lot of what we do is working with people, often marginalized people living in remote areas, and building them up and partnering with them to improve their livelihoods, which thereby supports tiger conservation. So I think it's about making sure that people understand that nuance of how we work as well, so that it's one and the same. And with COVID in particular, it's also about creating those parallels between, for instance, markets where maybe tiger products are sold along a lot of other illegal wildlife products, and some of how that can lead to different zoonotic disease transmission and things. Yeah, so that's some of the strategies we use.
Thank you. Vilma?
Yeah. This is for Dato Kadir. Thank you, Dato Kadir, for informing the public of so many actions taken by the government for the Malayan tigers. Many of the heroic and difficult actions are unknown to the public. Now, can Dato tell the public how much money, and now it might jump, how much money, can someone read it for me? Somehow or other, I am not able to.
Vilma, I can do it.
Yeah,
I'll read it.
you.
Okay. Yeah. So now, can Dato tell the public how much money in Malaysian ringgit is allocated by the government for tiger conservation in the 12th Malaysian plan, which is for the next 5 years, specifically for protection and monitoring? And how about the ICSI2 component? I think the amount is unprecedented.
Frankly said, it's almost around 100 million ringgit Malaysia. It's around the figure for the sake of Malayan tiger. You see how serious the government conserve the tiger. I hope others will also follow. That's it, Burma.
Thank you. Yeah, shall I ask the next question? I can see it. Dato Kadir, I think everybody is very interested in the Malayan tiger. So this question is for Dato Kadir. Thank you for the work you do. With the National Tiger Survey conducted, what is the latest number of Malayan tigers left in the wild?
What I can say now is that this is below 200 animals, and the actual number will give a privilege to be announced by Malaysia Prime Minister in this near future. Just wait. I think the number is there. But at present, at the end of 2020, the number is less than 200. That's all I can say. Not many in the wild.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Carmen?
Okay. Dato, I'm afraid there's another question
Okay,
for,
no problem.
for you. Okay. I don't believe this has been asked yet, right? I read on the Pahang
No, it has not
media that the state government wants to take over the management of Taman Negara. Ooh, I feel this might affect tigers. What is Perhilitan going to do with regards to this proposal?
Thank you for the question. I can say that Pahang is very keen in strengthening the tourism aspect of Taman Negara Pahang, especially the areas adjacent to the Taman Negara Pahang. And Pahang State probably feels a legislation needed to do this, and probably this would be good so that Perhilitan can focus on enforcement. On enforcement protected area management. However, for information, this is still under discussion by ministry and also the states, and the conclusion and actually no conclusion have been made for time being. We will inform that if time permitted. At present, no conclusion. Still discussion. Okay, that's all I can comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Dato.
Thank you.
Vilma,
Yeah, I think I'm going to ask the last question of all the people, all our panelists, after which we will proceed with the closing because we've kind of run out of time. But the last question, this is from SWAG to all 4 of our speakers. If you had a wish and the wish was granted tomorrow for tigers, what would your wish be? Anyone can start.
My wish is to increase the number and to have a good habitat for the species. That's from me, from the department.
Thanks, Dato. We wish your wish comes true.
Thank you.
Who else wants to go next? Adrian?
Thank you. I guess my wish is mainly for the leopard cat right now. You know that it thrives in Singapore. We are a city in nature, and being a city in nature has its challenges also because there's a lot of developmental pressure as well as and there's also a conservation ethos. How do we balance that? And I hope that in that balance, right, all the animals, all the native animals in Singapore do well now. So that's my wish.
May your wish come true, Adrian. Thank you.
It's your wish as well.
Yes, it is.
I think my wish would be around local people being able to more easily benefit from having the large carnivores living sort of in habitat alongside them. I think they pay a lot of the costs and they don't often have easy access to some of the benefits. So we're obviously always trying to improve that. But I think if I had a wish and could snap my fingers, that would be it, because they're the ultimate important partners.
Thank you, Jenny. May your wish come true. Elizabeth?
My wish is that everybody who's poaching or trading tigers or using tigers or buying them will wake up tomorrow morning with no memory. And they'll forget about all of it. Then we won't have problems anymore. Or at least this problem anymore.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, we wish your wish comes true. It's also our wish. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, 4 of you, for those very insightful talks. And definitely it, I think, roused a lot of interest, insight, passion, worry, hope. So thank you very much for that. Well, So Carmen, should we move on to the next part where we will invite Ms. Tanvi Dutta Gupta and Ms. Ariana Ram, our young ones, two of several who have been helping us. We have another team who is doing social media, but Tanvi and Ariana will now present their takeaways from Singapore Tiger Week, as well as their summary statements to Dr. Siva. Dr. Siva, are you around? Could we have you put on your camera? And this is presented to Dr. Siva, and of course, all of us. But Dr. Siva will be the one who takes this to the Global Tiger Forum. Yes, we see Dr. Siva there. So Ariana and Tanvi, over to you.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. It's really, really exciting to see the last day of Singapore Tiger Week have such a big turnout. So yeah, like Vilma said, we'll be presenting today a little bit of our thoughts and reflections from all of Tiger Week. So just to introduce ourselves, I'm Tanvi. I'm a second year in university and I'm studying ecology.
Hi, I'm Ariana. I'm going into my 11th grade of high school and I've always been very passionate about the environment too. This is my introduction to wildcat action though.
Yeah, and so both of us over the last week have been coming to the lectures and listening to what's been said. And we've been thinking about what it means for us. And we're thinking about this idea of the question that Vilma has been asking at the end of every Q&A, which is, what is your wish for tigers? So we've been thinking about what these wishes means. And if we could have anything for tiger conservation, what would it be? So our summary statement is built around that, the wishes that we've heard over the last week and the wishes that we've built as a result of those. Our wish for tigers is that we wish that tiger conservation becomes a conversation with everyone at the table. And as we go through the other wishes that we've heard, I hope that the reason we came up with this wish will become a little clearer.
So Dr. Kanchan Thapa wished that the next generation can see tigers too. I've learned through Singapore Tiger Week that if we are to ensure tigers exist for generations to come, we must effectively integrate conservation into our lives and future. This means fostering conservation amongst the youth, bridging the gaps between experts on the field and the community, and protecting the remaining habitat. In her talk on the very first day of Singapore Tiger Week, Ms. Lara Arifin highlighted how valuable educating children on their wildlife is for conservation, saying to know is to love and to love is to protect. As a member of the youth, I can attest to this statement, as my own introduction to conservation was in my 4th grade class where we focused for the whole year on the environment. Catwalkers from Mr. Kenish Manokaran's talk additionally pointed out that in the field of tiger conservations, the experts are often, and very rightly, occupied with their work, while we from urban areas have no tangible experience with the issue. Bridging this gap through Catwalk, Singapore Tiger Week, and future campaigns with even broader reach becomes an important step to garnering enough support to prioritize tiger conservation's needs, like preserving habitat, which of course we've all learned is a very basic necessity. So I feel so privileged to be able to see tigers in the wild. Let's ensure even the generations after me have this privilege too.
One of the other wishes that stood out to us was Dr. Raghu Chandawat's wish that I wish tigers can find a friendly community wherever they travel. This wish to me speaks to a lot of the things the themes I've heard highlighted over the last week. I think anyone who's come to even one of the Tiger Week events has realized what a diversity of habitats tigers span, from the forests of Malaysia to the foothills of the Himalayas. And I think what we've heard also is the importance of protecting tigers across that diversity of that range, not just in 1 or 2 places. So wherever they travel, they should have a friendly community and a safe home. I think this also speaks to the actual dynamism of tigers. I think we've seen that tigers are not a static animal that stays in one place all the time. They move. They're not fixed things we can keep in a zoo and assume they'll stay there. They are dynamic creatures that span habitats, that span ecosystems. And protecting that range and that freedom of movement is critical. We've heard a lot about wildlife corridors in the last week. I think we've also heard one of my big takeaways is that wildlife corridors can be both a blessing and a curse, as they make tigers vulnerable to poachers as well. And so it additionally speaks to the complexity of any of the solutions to these issues. And finally, I think the last part of Dr. Chandawat's wish that means a lot to me is this idea of a friendly community wherever they travel. I think we heard today about the importance of making sure the communities feel supported when they're living close by tigers. Tigers don't just stay in a protected area, they range outside of those, they range near humans. And the importance of ensuring that everyone around a tiger population also supports that tiger population is critical to ensuring their survival, to making sure that humans live side by side, that humans can be friends with tigers wherever they go.
Seismic, 7 points this morning. So,
So Dr. Kei Kawanishi wished for the government to have adequate capacity, resources, and the will to enforce the law that exists. It's no secret that the environment in general does not get its due attention, but in seeing all of these experts discuss their work, I've started to properly comprehend the significance of having insufficient funds and resources when fighting tigers. Through Ms. Lo Chi Feng's talk, I learned patrols become more streamlined and effective when various organizations pertaining to tiger conservation unite. Like is shown on the image on the screen, or will be shown on the image on the screen. Because uniting, whether it be on patrols, in national conferences, or in data centralization and management, it can help minimize the effects of limited manpower and resources. Now, I'm additionally privileged to live in Singapore with such a limited exposure to crime. But as Ms. Anbarasi Bhupal's talk pointed out on the demand end of poaching, it really illuminated how important both strong legislation and enforcement, as well as community awareness is to conservation. Harnessing the international community through large-scale campaigns for funding and the local communities for manpower as well, like Dr. K and Ms. Lam Wai explained is being done, we can even gain resources for these important causes.
I think we heard a lot about this today, but Dr. Dale McKell just the other day said, I wish I woke up tomorrow and there was no demand for tiger products. Today we've heard a lot more about the poaching side of tiger conservation. And I think it really stands out that this remains across all the speakers we heard one of the biggest threats facing tigers today. I think what we've heard across a lot of the talks and what stood out to me is that poaching must be addressed at all levels of where it happens, all levels of supply chains, from anti-poaching patrols in forests to ensuring that there's no demand for it on the other side. And so addressing it across the spectrum means that everyone has a responsibility to prevent the sale of tiger parts, from the consumers sitting in urban centers to the poaching patrols going into Malaysia's jungles for weeks or months at a time. I think what I've also learned through this idea of poaching as this linked system that everyone has a part to play in is that tigers also, poaching does not just affect them. We've heard today about how after tiger populations deplete, poachers are turning to other wild cats like lions or snow leopards in order to supply the demand. And so even poaching for tigers does not exist in a vacuum, and protecting tigers in fact means protecting not just their ecosystems they affect, but also wildcat populations across the world.
So now Ms. Lam Wai wished that the planet was a place to live in harmony. But unfortunately, the world is often very disharmonious. So as tiger populations grow closer to humans, more conflict might ensue and species can be antagonized by the public, as depicted in the image to the right, and also during today's session. But Dr. Kai explained that in the midst of COVID-19, the local community stepped up to patrol the forest. Mr. Chow highlights not involving locals sooner as one of the lessons he's learned working in northern Myanmar. So I've learned that by empowering local communities to understand and patrol their wildlife, we can mitigate conflict, whether it be on the poacher or the village end, for tiger conservation. One of my personal biggest takeaways from this whole week has been how challenging it truly is to strike the right balance for conservation. I mean, how does one balance preservation and infrastructural growth in developing countries, or corridors and reduced access to poachers, or strong anti-poaching legislation and villagers who may not realize they're committing crimes? And then Dr. Dale McKell said something that really struck me. He mentioned that both conservationists and poachers share the desire for increased tiger populations, and that even urbanization can be good for habitat protection. So hopefully by finding common grounds on these issues, we can hope to build a harmonious environment in the future.
So which brings us back to our wish. We wish that tiger conservation becomes a conversation with everyone at the table. So much of what we learned this week has been about balance. And I think one of the key takeaways for me about balance is balance does not happen with just two people in opposition trying to work towards each other. It's making sure the spectrum of people are there so that you have the spectrum of different balances that can occur. And so the scale is truly even. And in terms of a conversation with everyone at the table, I think we've seen with the turnout every day for Tiger Week, there's so many people who want to learn about tiger conservation, who want to be a part of it. And whenever all the success stories we've heard have come because people have come together across groups, across communities, from urban centers, from rural centers, from tiger habitats, from non-tiger habitats, in pursuit of a common goal. A lot of what we've heard this week has been really, really sad, hearing about the state of tigers and conservation today. But I think what's given me hope as I sort of move forward and think about my own path in conservation in the future is this idea of, yes, it's really sad, but look at all these people coming together to fight for it. Look at all these people who haven't given up. Look at all this work and all this hope and all this love for tigers as taking us forward into the future. And if we're all sitting together and talking, and if we're all listening to each other and implementing solutions and moving forward, there's something at least to look for in the future. So thank you everyone for listening to us. And yeah, those are our wishes for tiger conservation.
Thank you so much, Tanvi and Ariana. I definitely couldn't have said all that. And yeah, you girls are wonderful. And I do have hope, because with youth like the two of you and the rest of our volunteers, I have hope that the tigers will survive, because you're going to make a difference. Thank you. Maybe invite Dr. Siva, honorary member of the Global Tiger Forum, to say a few words. Dr. Siva?
Yeah, can you see me?
We see not yet.
Oh, is it? You don't see me yet?
Yes, we see you. We just had a very nice poster first. We wanted to show you the very nice poster we had.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow, yeah, I would say 1 week of immersed in the conversation of tigers. I'm really inspired by, especially, I was thinking of how I'm going to summarize, but our two youngsters, Tanvi and Ariana, you have done a marvelous job of taking the essence of all the speakers, as you say, a diverse range of speakers from all over the landscape, including, of course, initially probably you wanted to just do it like from a citizen point of view, but you also managed to get our big guns like Dato Abdul Kadir here for the final day, and we heard about his efforts in Malaysia and also in all the tiger range countries. Wonderful speakers. And I just don't want to repeat what has been summarized. But first of all, I think under this new norm of COVID-19, and I think it has given us this opportunity to bring the speakers right into our homes. And if you were to organize this kind of workshop in a usual manner in the past, you would have to travel somewhere for a workshop, and people like Tanya and Arvi would not be there, and citizens, ordinary citizens would not be there. It would be like we'd be preaching to the preacher, those who are converted, no? So this is something new, and I think the objective of your workshop organized by the Singapore Wildcat Action Group, SWAG, is commendable. And there's a saying, local Malay saying, which says that when the tiger dies, it leaves behind its tribe. When the human dies, he or her leaves behind a name. There's a lot of interpretation, but the usual in the past interpretation is say you just skin the tiger and keep the stripe in the museum. But actually, I think it is not so. If you look at what Dr. Kai said in the ecological time span, it's just a 1 or 2 millimeter distance. No? So I'm looking at why Singapore was so keen in organizing this, although it's from the NGO, but Singapore is so keen on organizing this Tiger Week. It's deep rooted in the culture. Because Singapore had tigers that one that roamed. And I was looking at the archives. I mean, I'm passionate about also looking at historical data. If you look at, there's a lot of written account of tigers roaming in Singapore. In 1850s, 54, there's a report that 6 people in average were killed by tigers in Singapore because they were opening the forest for Gambia plantation and so on, or they were going to the coastal area looking for sago, that they were killed by tigers. There were tigers that were shot even before 1938. They were shot in the 10th mile West Coast Road in 1928. So this, in the ecological time frame, it's just a moment ago. And we have heard about Kazakhstan wanted to bring back the tiger. And we also heard about the near future scenario that the urbanization and the prospect when these poachers that are coming from various surrounding countries, their economic status will improve. Hopefully, the poaching pressure will reduce. So there's prospect of tigers being brought back to these ex-tiger ranging countries, and also in habitats where tigers, we have lost the tigers. But to do that, we also been cautioned that the people, the public must be ready. And I think this conference like this, for ordinary people who are not really working on tigers, like the rangers, the officers and all that, is very important, very key. We want to bring back the tigers. The people must be aware of it. I think we should have more such kind of thing in other tiger ranging countries too. So I really, it's a very much, it's a commendable job that you have done. And just look, we are talking about all these many conferences. We are talking about reducing the carbon footprint. The amount of carbon footprint that they've reduced, not bringing all these people, flying all these people, and then we are just, you know, we have brought these wonderful speakers to our homes for over the week, and we have seen all this. I don't want to mention, but in terms of enforcement, the amount of effort that has been undertaken. Earlier, we heard from Dr. Kadir the amount of seizures and that's been undertaken, and of course there are gaps in terms of the cases that need to be prosecuted, as what highlighted by Elizabeth. But also, Dr. Dale pointed out that there is prospect in the future. We can look at bringing back the tiger into the areas where we have lost the tigers. But we have to do a lot of work. There's a lot of work, and the SWAG has been helping out Malaysian counterparts in the corridors. We have heard from Dr. Raghu and others that corridors are important future need, because as more highways and infrastructures are being constructed, the only way is to mitigate through corridors. We need these corridors, and there is also other challenges, as we heard, that the zoonotic disease and so on. And there's also wonderful effort. We heard, we also heard the beautiful visuals from all of you all, including from Lara, which I think would help to bring this message to the ordinary people, why we need the tiger, why we need to keep the tiger. So I don't want to take too much of time. I know this job of summarizing this has been wonderfully done by the youngsters here. I would take these recommendations to the Global Tiger Forum, and this was also highlighted by the last speaker, Ms. Jenny Roberts, about the Global Tiger Summit. Before the Tiger Summit, there's also the ministerial meeting and so on, which I think this recommendation will be useful to bring to the attention to our the organizers of the conference, the leaders of the Tiger Range countries, the 13 Tiger Range countries. Hopefully, ex-Tiger Range country like Singapore, Kazakhstan, and all that will join in, and we will expand this. Although the tiger is not in the landscape, but it's still in our heart. You know. With that, I think I should thank the organizers, especially Dr. Vilma and Carmen, for putting together this, and your team, and also to all the speakers from all over the world, including the Russian Far East, Bhutan, the mountains of Bhutan, Nepal, and from India, the right, and to our Malaysian counterparts, the NGOs in Malaysia who are doing a wonderful job working together with the government, and in a tough situation in Myanmar, in the present context, trying to save the tiger, and a wonderful work on the landscape level that's going on in Sumatra and the National Tiger Survey in Malaysia. All this effort, I think we need to step up, but we need the participation and the support, and it is finally in a democratic country when elections are going on, when you go and vote the government, is tiger on the agenda? You know, tiger must be, if this tiger is not the agenda, the politicians also won't act upon it, you know. So we have to bring citizens like all of you all need to bring this up, and conservation of wildlife and tigers need to be prioritized in the national agenda. With that, I would thank you all and thank all the speakers. Definitely bring this recommendation up to the Global Tiger Forum, and thank you very much. We hope that more such Tiger Week will be organized in all the Tiger Range countries. We like to hear what's happening in Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and also probably in Kazakhstan. But I think a lot of work is going on. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Siva, for your enthusiasm and your encouragement. We would like to take up your challenge and have Singapore Tiger Week every year. Anyway, thank you very much, Dr. Siva, and we really appreciate that you will bring this message from Tanvi and Ariana representing our youth to the Global Tiger Forum. And Dr. Kai actually made a suggestion. She said, thank you, Tanvi and Ariana. I hope you will represent the youth of today and speak to the Prime Ministers at the Global Tiger Summit next year. Let's raise funds to send them there. What do you think, guys? Shall we try? I'm game to raise funds. Yeah, they gotta go. You gotta go, girls. Anyway, let's hope that the health situation will be much better next year in Russia, for Russia, and that our girls could go as well. Thank you, everyone. Now for some parting slides, I think Carmen has some last things.
Yeah, thank you, Vilma. And also I want to echo Vilma's sentiment. Thank you very much, Dr. Siva, for joining us tonight. And of course, I want to thank our speakers, Adrian, the Dato, Elizabeth, and Jenny. And of course, since today is the last day of Singapore Tiger Week 2021, I want to especially thank all of our SWAG volunteers like Tanvi and Ariana, without whom we would never have been able to organize and execute this event. So thank you very much. And of course, I cannot forget our audience. I want to thank everyone who joined us today, as well as on every other day, every day, to make really Singapore Tiger Week such a success. You know, we're very overwhelmed by how the number of participants who have joined us. So y'all have truly been a wonderful and engaging audience. And I hope our speakers have inspired you to take actions for tigers. There are many ways to help from, and we've heard from Tanvi and Ariana, but ways to help, from something as simple as sharing what you've learned with your friends and family, to petitioning for policy changes that offer stronger protections for tigers. They're just a multitude of things we can do as regular citizens. But another way, which is very important that you can help, is of course to support tiger conservation organizations by donating to them. And at SWAG, this is the last time I'm going to say it now. We have created the Singapore Tiger Week fundraiser page on global giving, where you can help protect the Malayan tiger by making a direct donation to the Wildlife Society of Selangor. SWAG, we organize Singapore Tiger Week as a free public service. So if you think we did a good job, and if you want to give us a pat on our backs, one way is by making a contribution to our fundraiser. And please simply scan this QR code and it will take you directly to the page. And now that fundraiser raises funds for my cat to save the Malayan tiger. Whereas if you want to support us at SWAG directly, you can also go to our web store and look at our SWAG. 100% of all profits go to wildcat conservation programs, including our very own Love Our Leopard Cat campaign, which works toward the protection of the last wildcat of Singapore. And with that, I'm going to turn it over back to Vilma before we say goodbye.
Thank you, Carmen. I just wanted Daphne to thank the other volunteers. Did you have yes, thank you. Yeah, besides Tanvi and Ariana, we have other volunteers who have tirelessly been helping us with social media, with setting up TikTok. Well, some of the things we don't know, they did. So besides Ariana and Tanvi, thank you to Jolene, Sweta, Avinash, Zerwe, and help me here, I cannot see, Callista, who else? Zerwe, Daphne, can you name them because I can't see?
So there's Callista, Marissa, Zijie at the bottom.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. And we really appreciate all your work. And these guys go to school as well, okay? Thank you. Yeah, so definitely the next slide. Yeah, just this is the last slide that Carmen and I and SWAG want to show you, because it doesn't end here. We said time is running out. So we're having a challenge. It's a race against time. It's a challenge that you can set yourself. And as you set yourself that challenge, go get funds in the process. So we are still crafting out the challenge. Last year, what we did was each of us ran 100 or walked, like I walked, 100 kilometers. And we got friends and family to donate. And we raised a total of $11,560 US. This year, we want to break that record. So do join us. Everyone can participate. Check out our website, and we will be telling you a little bit more about this race against time. It's very doable. I'm going to take part. You can walk. You don't have to run. Okay. And we hope to raise a good amount of money. I dare not say how much, just in case we don't reach it, but a good amount of money for my cat. All right, so please do join us. Daphne, do you have any more slides?
No, that's the last
Okay.
slide.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. And thanks so much for attending Singapore Tiger Week. There are other volunteers I just see. Angela, thank you. Daphne, thank you. Without you guys, we couldn't have done it. Angela was the admin. Daphne took care of the students as well as a lot of admin. So Elena took care of our news release. So thank you very much, everyone, volunteers, students, and adults. And thanks to everyone who came.
Okay, so sorry for the running over of time, but thank you and hope to see you at our next event, at our next Tiger Week and at the race. So bye.